if it's optional. Hello everybody, it is I, Hidden Flame. Welcome to Werewolf the Apocalypse. I know nothing about this game. It looks like a D&D type thing. It's a single player game. I want to give it a shot. So I will be playing this game along with a couple of others while I'm in the middle of still editing my old Skyrim and Dragon Quest Heroes 2 games. So this is going to be placed just as placers, so hopefully I can get those done quickly. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen here. Sorry, I'm moving my mic. So hopefully we can have an understanding of what's going on as we play. Better quality. What is that? Better performance, better quality. I can handle it. Analytics. The hell is this? Is this what he said no to? Oh, yeah, no. Anyway, leave that off. Okay, so new game. Premonition. Oh, this can be a chapter game, so I guess my videos will be chapters. This game is about rage. It'll help and how it helps us do things that need to be done, as well as things that we regret later. Sometimes both. How do you feel about that? Well, I like to think before I act. Well, this... Okay, here. So, you're the observant and cunning type. That's okay. There's no right path here. You just your decisions and the consequences. Well, let's just follow the path and see where it takes us. I gotta turn that off. The forest. The woods are full. They flicker, come closer, run away. They want me to chase them, to play hide and seek. I observe. I watch as they dance around the tree trunks, float up on the gusts of wind, and shiver through the branches, disappear among the leaves. There are words in their dance, but I do not understand them. Not yet. Then they bunch up and fly towards me like an arrow. Or rushing down, they are soon upon me. But just before the spear of light pierces my breast, they disappear, and the dark of night returns. In the darkness, the spirits keep the forest alive and whisper about the enemy. I begin to move, unnoticed, one with the night. And then I wake up. Confused, I open my eyes. The forest around me is thick, dark, makes it decay. To such an extent, it's hard to breathe. Why am I here? My head is spinning. Why am I here? There must be a reason. The tree trunks, wrapped tightly in dark-leaved ivy, are covered in ripples of lichen where the vines haven't taken hold. The thorny, leafless bushes at the base are overrun with needles. The fungus radiate with the ghoulish, sickly green light. Dark, sponge-like mushrooms cling to the forest. Try to breathe. I take a deep breath and suddenly realize that it is not the forest that smells foul. It's me. I look down and see my head in a dark substance. I'm naked, a sticky, glistening film of liquid clinging to my skin. I can feel it on my face, in my hair. Blood. Oh, I'm alert. Nature is never quiet. The leaves rustle in the wind. Small creatures scuttle in the undergrowth. There is a whisper. I don't understand what it means, but the word resonates in my head. Garu. Who said that? There is a severed head in front of me. Oh, touch it. Overwhelming disgust. I gently touch its wet hair and watch as the head topples over. The face is contorted, the eyes bloodshot, the mouth open as the head did, as though the head were still struggling for air. I look at it and laugh. And then eyes open in the darkness. I can see the silhouettes, shade of jet black against the darkness. They smell of fur and moss. The bloodied earth. Massive creatures with some horns, some with antlers. Their eyes burn like small, fiery windows into hell. I look at them. Something wakes inside me. They tell me stories of their lost battles and dying hopes as I say, no! I tell them my stories of the enemy and how they are so stupid, so clueless, that we almost feel pity as we kill them. They listen and laugh. I laugh with them. In a moment of clarity, I almost understand what the forest wants from me. Then I wake up. Okay, I'll just hop right into the first chapter. That was rather quick. Maya, wake up! I open my eyes. My neck is stiff. I stretched lazily as I assessed where I was out of the corner of my eye. I wasn't in the forest anymore. I was on a bus. The sun streaming through the windows was making it hard to see. The girl next to me was touching my shoulder, disturbed. I comfort her. It's alright. I squeezed her hand in comfort. She looked at me concerned. You were laughing like maniacally. I blinked. The memory of the dream was still there, and the taste of blood in my mouth. I'm glad I wasn't alone. Thank you for coming with me, I said. The girl next to me smiled. I think we're almost there. Her name was Anya. We met a couple of weeks earlier on the orientation day. She was from Norway. A tall, broad-shouldered, calm person who wore her long hair in braids. Somehow, I managed to talk her into this crazy field trip across the land of my ancestors. She seemed excited. Anya reached into her backpack. Into her backpack and took out 2 apples. I'm really happy we decided to come here, she said. Yeah, I said. Offered her some of my kabanosi, dried meaty sausages that were much better than the original Polish ones back in the US. I was glad Anya had decided to come with me. I had problems keeping friends around and I really needed one. I did some searching, she said from over her phone, and this place is amazing. The last primordial forest in Europe. This trip was my idea. Our summer language course was starting in a few weeks, and I managed to talk Anya into skipping the tours of concentration camps and old churches and visiting Białowieża National Park with me instead. So far, it's beautiful, she said, her eyes smiling. But why are we here again? Good question. Where are we here? They're being Białowieża. I don't know these names. A small village in the northeast Poland, near the border with Belarus. It was famous for its national park, the very last European bison, and, according to a quick web search, occasional tensions between far-right troublemakers and the local Belarusian community. The most honest answer would have been, because I've been dreaming about the forest since I can remember. But people didn't understand when I said things like that. I looked into her eye. Told her everything. Gonna have a friend? If I'm gonna have a friend, I'm gonna have it completely honest. I've always had these dreams where I'm in this forest and it speaks to me, I said hesitantly. I'm not sure why I feel like I'm supposed to be here. Only my grandfather understood the dreams. Respect the forest, he would say. And pay attention to your dreams. That's all I got. It was all I got from that part of the family before my mom took me, ran away, and cut off all contact with my dad. I want to wait for her to respond. Anya was silent for a long time. Wow, that's intense. She looked at me with what seemed like respect. I wouldn't dare tell anyone a story like that. I think it is great that you come from such a magical place, she smiled. The last ancient forest in Europe, thousands of years old. I wasn't sure if I was fond of that magic, but it was hard to ignore. And it was precisely why I needed to do something, anything, about my future and the damn forest and my weird-ass family. I had a clear goal in mind. I wasn't there by mistake. I planned this trip for months with a clear goal in mind. Okay. Face the forest, learn truth about the roots. I had to figure out my destiny. Yep. Let's figure out what's going on with my life, but first, learn the truth about my roots. My grandfather's stories, the secrets, my mother running away. There was a mystery about my past. It was time I uncovered the truth of who I was. There was a mystery to uncover and an adventure to be had. I couldn't wait. Okay, your willpower dropped to 0. When you lose your health or willpower, you become impaired. This will make physical tasks, if you have 0 heart, or social mental tasks, if you have 0 willpower, harder and become impossible. Uh-oh. So I gotta keep an eye on these. Fair enough. I'm gonna call it Bialo. Oh no, actually there's a pronunciation. Białowieża? Białowieża? Wow, okay. I'm just gonna call it Baya. Baya looked like an overexposed photo of a village with the contrast turned all the way up. It was sleepy. It was a hot, sleepy day. It was a hot, sleepy day on a hot, sleepy street, and everything—the old trees, the yellow grass, the weathered wooden houses, the fences—seemed almost normal. Everything except the shadows. They were sharp. They were sharp, as though they were freshly painted with the darkest of inks. And they moved. For a second, I could have sworn they moved. And I realized it was just a black cat walking down the sidewalk. It saw me and stopped in its track. Kitty! Kitty cat, pet it. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. We said, squatting and reaching out toward the cat. It rammed me affectionately with its head and started rubbing against my legs, totally ignoring the outstretched hand. Hey, Maya. Anya said, looking at me, surprised. Didn't you say your friend would be waiting for us? But he wasn't there, and the cat was still staring at me. Let's go. Anya put on her backpack. I'm tired, and I really need to go. I really need to find a toilet. Uh-oh. I didn't know what to do. I was too tired and distracted to think clearly. My friend was nowhere in sight. Dang it. Fine, let's go. I grabbed my backpack and started walking. I'll manage on my own, thanks for nothing, I muttered under my breath. Anya sighed with relief and followed me. Baya had a few hotels and hostels, but the preferred form of accommodation was bed and breakfasts. Bed and breakfasts. Breakfasts. That's where we stayed. Ooh, yawned. I found one that was nice, clean, and had a good view. Good reviews. We had a room with a second floor with a huge window. Had a great view of the forest. We dropped off our stuff and freshened up a bit. Maybe we should have waited for your friend, Anya asked, concerned. I shrugged. I'll find him sooner or later. Before you go, check out your character sheet. Look for it in the upper right corner of the screen. If you can find a load of useful information about Mia, her background, personality, goals, and so on. You also can check who your friends and who your enemies are. Baya was a quaint tourist town. Okay, let's see. Apparently I'm an American. I'm very spiritual. Okay. Anya is loyal. That's cool. Baya is a quaint tourist town, but I had other things on my mind. I had a clear goal in my mind. My family was entangled with this town and the forest. I had to uncover my roots. Anya went with you. Let's look around town first. As we walked through the town, Anya nudged me and pointed at a tall, broad-shouldered, freckled guy standing at the bus stop with a lost expression on his face. I remembered his face from the pictures on social media. It was the friend who stood me up earlier. I was glad to see him. Bartek, I waved to him and smiled. Sorry I missed you earlier. Maya, what are you doing here? he blurted with a surprise when he saw me. I was sure you were coming on the later bus. We started walking and talking. His accent was broad and Eastern European. Ooh. He was kind of looking at me. He kept glancing out at me with the corner of his eye. When I caught his gaze, I could swear he looked scared. We walked along the only street in the village. Nearing the center, if you could call it that, every house had a garden, and that the air was dense with the fragrance of flowers. I took a deep breath. So, did you manage to trace the name I gave you? I asked. Bartok shook his head. Nope. Absolutely nothing. Sorry. He was avoiding my eyes. A trickle of sweat ran down his temple. He looked afraid. What's up, man? I smiled. Spill the beans. I'm a big girl. I can take it. But he just clammed up. You know what? I think you should drop it. I stopped. It was almost too easy. He was scared of something. I turned to Bartek and touched his arm. What's eating at you, man? He shrugged and shook his head. You can tell us, Anya added gently. Well, I have no willpower, so taunted him a bit. What are you afraid of? Little old me? I sprayed out my arms. The game tracks your decisions on how Maya approaches problems. They will accumulate and gradually reveal the kind of person she is, deep in her heart. The story changes to reflect Maya's personality. Well, he brushed his forehead with the back of his hand. I did ask, and I started with the old people here. I told them that my friend from the States was looking for her roots and wanted to know about the place her family came from. You know the drill. At first, people were very receptive, receptive. I waited for the other shoe to drop. And then I mentioned your name. Well, Urson, come on. Out with it. Bartok, no dramatic pauses, please, I urged him. Tension is killing me. One of the old men here told me to go to hell. The other spat on the ground, and the wife crossed herself. For a moment, he looked younger and smaller. And then my own grandmother told me to stop asking. She said something else as well. What? I asked. She told me to pray for you. Suddenly, the sweet golden afternoon was not so sweet and golden anymore. I looked at Bartek and I saw that the stories he'd heard had clearly strained something between us. He was afraid of me. Who was I? We walked in silence, but my mind was in overdrive. People didn't want to talk, and that could only mean one thing. My pulse quickened and I tensed up like a hound that smelled blood. I was on the right track. Yay, I got a +1 willpower. Woohoo! Time to see the sights, I nodded at Bartek. Show me everything this place has to offer. We walked through the village, bathed in the sharp rays of the sun. It was a lazy afternoon, disturbed by only the occasional passing car, throwing up clouds of dust that hung in the air long after the vehicle was gone. Anya was walking close to Bartek, asking him about every little detail of the village. People were relaxing or working in their yards, dogs were barking, and every cat we passed froze to look at us. People seemed quite friendly, though. Some of them smiled at us as we passed by. Every one of them, and every once in a while we stopped for a small talk with people who knew Bartek. What's with the cats? I asked as we passed a tabby who stopped in the middle of the sidewalk to meow at us. I don't know. They're cats. Maybe they want to make up for the villagers' manners, Bartek shrugged. You know, some people are weary of newcomers. Xenophobic jerks. What's wrong with them? I threw my arms in the air. They see an unfamiliar face and immediately assume someone's there to destroy their lifestyle? I think it's a bit more nuanced than that. Bartek scratched the back of his neck, embarrassed by the topic. There's a small conflict around the forest, and it's attracting some weird people. Activists, reporters, bored rich kids. He said it as though his dad didn't own multiple businesses. People like that, and they're getting the locals on nerves. Fair enough. I nodded. I didn't explain the cats, though. It didn't explain the cats, though. Well, you're not one of those crazies, and you're, like, almost local. He smiled. So, what would you like to see in the village of your ancestors? He spread his arms as if to show me all of the splendor the village had to offer. What do you suggest? The cats were watching my every move as we walked along the empty streets. Let's go check the graveyard. So, we had quite a few churches here, Bartok explained as we walked down the road. 2 Orthodox, 1 Catholic, and even 1 Baptist church. He said as they were something uncommon. Was there a synagogue? Seemed like a lot of churches. Couldn't they all just use 1 building? I asked. Oh, I never thought of that, he paused. I guess they could, but you know how most churches are. We have been here. But most of the churches have been here for some time, so we still use them. And we don't have the tradition of them. And we don't have a tradition of using the same building for different denominations. So, it is what it is. Any Lutheran churches? Asked Anya. I don't think so. Bartok shook his head and he led to a small wooden church surrounded by a cemetery. Anyway, even though we had all the churches, there's only 1 cemetery. The church was Orthodox, but the graves were a mishmash of lifestyles and faiths. Catholic, Orthodox, atheist, everyone resting together. There's something poetic about it. It's a nice sentiment. There is something poetic about everyone in the same place when they die. Bartek smiled. There is, isn't it? He looked at the cemetery for a moment and seemed to be lost in thoughts. All of my family lies here, he said. I mean, the ones that are dead. Hey, what do you think? What do you think happens when you die? Oh, wow. Uh-oh. No, where's my mouse? There it is. Hope for something fair. I like to think it's something fair. I like the idea of judgment, Maybe you look at your life and finally You know why you were doing the things you did? And what came of it all? It would make sense. Bartek nodded. Yeah, it would. I'd like to believe it does. He looked over the cemetery fence. Well, anyway, this is it. The spiritual heart of Mbia. We could go somewhere else if you like. So that's where we stood. I wanted to get in, and he was clearly scared to let me into the cemetery. Screw it, I'm going in. Not so fast. I wanted to look for my family here, remember? I smiled and opened the gate. Bartek shifted uncomfortably. I don't know if that's a good idea. Why? What, why? I turned to him, surprised. I mean, I told you, people have weird reactions. Maybe it's better to leave it alone. So what are we waiting for? Anya smiled at him. He mumbled something and led us into the labyrinth of graves, to the far end of the cemetery. The walkways were very narrow, and the whole place seemed quite chaotic. Catholic crosses, Orthodox crosses, no crosses at all, huge statues and simple gravestones, graves you couldn't see because of all the flowers, and the graves seemed completely forgotten. And then I saw the woman, tall, broad-shouldered, and long-legged, with gray dreadlocks pinned to the crown of her head. She must have been there, maybe in her late 40s or early 50s. She was marching through the walkways with fury in her eyes. Bartek quickly stepped between the graves to get out of her way. Ooh. Let's see. Well, let her pass. I'm a nice guy. I followed his lead. I think the woman didn't even notice us, lost in thought and anger. Bartek looked at her with a mixture of fear and disdain. Who is her? Who is that? I asked, watching the woman leave. Bartek went, oh, that's Olga. She's the local activist. She left Bia when she was 18 and something. I returned a few years back with the notion that she was going to change this place. We continued to the far corner of the cemetery. There, seemingly forgotten, covered in moss, was a lonely grave. The tombstone was broken, deliberately. Someone had obviously smashed it with a hammer. The plaque was also damaged. Someone tried to visibly scratch the name out, but the letters were still visible. There was a circle around the grave. There was a circle of coarse salt around the grave. I'm sorry, Bartek sighed. I didn't want you to see that. So the circle grave is the circle of salt, if I'm not mistaken, is a ring of protection, if I'm not mistaken. I need to know who did this. Who did this? I asked, trying to keep my cool. I don't know. I just squatted and looked through the plaque. I can't read it. The letters are all wrong. Huh, yawn. She glanced at Bartek. Is it Russian? Belarusian. Same letters, different language, he explained. There were a lot of them here before the war. I looked at Bartek, hoping for some context. Bartek put his hands in his pockets. So, you don't know anything about your dad's side of the family? I asked. He asked me cautiously. Whatever happened Whatever happened at least 70 years ago, and someone still remembers. I don't know them. My mom left my dad when I was a kid, so I don't remember much, I admitted. She kept me away from them and she doesn't even know I'm here. I didn't tell her that I was visiting Leah. Maybe she was abusive? And Anya carefully. Perhaps she wanted to protect you. Yeah, I guess. I looked at the grave one last time. My family's name looked strange, written in unfamiliar Belarusian letters. As we were leaving, I was thinking, I was onto something. Woohoo! There was something unnatural about my family, and me coming to Bio had stirred some old demons. I just had to find out what my ancestors were doing. Who were they? I thought we left the cemetery. The day was hot and beautiful, yet I couldn't stop thinking about the devastated grave. Let's go to the railway. Bartek wants to show us the most picturesque spot in the area, said Anya. Maybe that's not the right word for it. Well, it's not that it's not like it's not... I can't talk. Well, it's not like it's that beautiful, but it has, an atmosphere, a climate. Hang on. I have a water here. If I knew this was going to be so much talking, I'll have this closer. Okay. Ambience? Anya said at the same moment as I, and we laughed. Ambience. Bartek smiled, visibly relieved. I meant ambience. Oh, shit. I'm caught. There we go. We ended up on some abandoned tracks. We soon left the village behind and ended up on some abandoned railway tracks. So this is where the magic happens, I grinned, pointing at the empty bottles and used condoms strewn along the tracks. But with a slow, winding river a stone's throw away, and the long, drooping branches of the old trees shading the unused railway, that place was really picturesque. The bees buzzed around us. The birds sang like there was no tomorrow. And the fragrance of herbs hung thick in the air. My head was spinning. It all felt unreal. I wasn't sure if it was the heat or the smell of the herbs, but the whole scene seemed unreal. The river slid by to our left like a giant snake. Bees zigzagged through the air in sync, and the trees watched us. Every nook and hollow in the trunks sheltered a prying eye. I took a deep breath and opened my mind. For a moment, the world flickered, and I saw it all differently. Every plant, every stone, every cloud, every insect was a person. The world was alive and unaware of its own existence. The railway cut in half. The rusty old brand burned on the skin of the earth. Covered in iron cobwebs, the dark, straining, and oozing stains. I looked up, saw a bright light shimmering among the trees where we were headed. Then I blink, and the vision was gone. When we entered the dense copse, we noticed a woman standing there in the trees. She stood in a spot where I saw the shining light. "Hello, Bartek," she said. She was stunning. The woman looked like she was in her late 30s and was the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. She had a perfect hourglass figure, long braids, the most stunning cheekbones. Her eyes, slightly slanted, were a weird shade of blue, deep, almost purple. They seemed familiar, and she was looking straight at me. Ooh. That was a challenge. No, let's not get the rage too high just in case. So. I stood there, transfixed. "Hello, Elizabetha Danny Lovina," answered Bartek. I could hear something in his voice. Was it fear? Respect? Anger? I couldn't place it. She smiled. "I'm Lisa," she said, looking at Anya, then again at me. "And you must be Bartek's pen pal, I assume? The one who's searching for her ancestry?" Lisa asked whether I'd like to hear what I'd seen, how long I planned to be staying for. "Do you mind if I join you?" she asked. "Sure, I don't mind." "Sure," I smiled. "By the way, I saw a strange light around here. Have you seen it? Have you seen it as well?" She gave me a funny look. "No, I don't think so." We walked the narrow path. The path was too narrow for us to walk together, so at some point I found myself walking with Lisa. She was squat from time to time. She would squat from time to time and collect herbs. "So why are you looking for your roots?" she said after a while. "Why?" "Oh, so you're looking for your roots. Why?" "I've been having strange dreams," I answered. And I know they have a meaning, hidden meaning." "You're wiser than you look," she said, surprised. "Sit down with me." She nestled among the roots of an old tree, reached into her basket, and took out a blunt. "Let's have a smoke, and I'll tell you a story." She noted when I hesitated. "You need to hear it." "Let's have a clear mind." Lisa let out a cloud of smoke and started talking. "From what I have learned from Bartek's grandmother, you're asking the wrong questions about the wrong people. So why shouldn't I be asking about my family?" "I was asking about my family," I pointed out. "But not the right branch of the family," she said. "Your grandfather wasn't from this village. This is a tainted land, girl. So much blood was spilled that Pacicia almost lost her mind." "Who?" Pacicia was one of the words for the forest. Polish had lots of those, but she used it in a weird way. "Why do you call the forest Pacicia? Isn't las the right word?" "I call her Pacicia." I don't even know the name. Thanks for not having a fanatic, whatever. I call her that because it's her proper name, she huffed. Las is to her what dog is to wolf. Domesticated, enslaved, use. She is a primeful forest, one untouched by humans, primal, strong, and feared. There was admiration in her voice, and when I realized the word sounded like a rustle of leaves, like the wind. Pashtia. As I was telling you, she almost went mad. And it's not wise to wake the spirits, especially not now. What spirits? You mean the dead? I asked. She looked at me with uncanny eyes. Her gaze was almost unbearable, hard with anger smoldering somewhere deep within her, ready to jump on my throat, and then suddenly something changed. Lisa laughed heavily. You have no idea, do you? About what? What do you mean? I asked. So you have no idea who you are, she stated. Nobody told you what it was like during the war and after. Her eyes lost focus as though she was looking at something only she could see. In 1939, when the war broke out, first came the Germans and then the Russians. You know, they actually worked together. Stalin never forget that he was beaten by the Poles in 1920. She shot me a glance. I didn't really care, but I nodded politely. Oh, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Doesn't really matter. She took a drag. Anyway, many millions of lives later, Stalin and Hitler stopped sleeping together. So to speak, the Germans came, and then the Russians again, and then there was the forest soldiers. I nodded so she would continue. The forest part got my attention. They started as Polish soldiers, but then the war ended and they became guerrillas to fight the Russians' occupation. And then they ended up as desperate bandits, she sighed. For the people who lived here, they were all the same. Germans, Russians, forest soldiers. They killed, they maimed, they tortured, and burned villages. It didn't matter what language they spoke. I'm sorry, I touched her arm. I didn't know it was also tangled. My great-grandparents from here, she sighed. After the war, there was some changes, and my whole family was sent to Siberia to die. My grandmother was the only one who survived. She met a Bulat shaman, and here I am. But your story is tangled with all of this. She looked straight at me. Have you ever wondered what your grandfather did during that war? I wanted to answer, but suddenly I felt dizzy. The smoke from her joint smelled funny. The forest moss, strange herbs, ashes of blood. Oh, that's changing. That's weird. Focus! I focused and understood that strange feeling came from within. It was like a forgotten dream, like an ancient memory suddenly brought to life. Let it in. We were sitting around a fire deep in the Azusia. The others are sleeping. I listened to the whisper of the leaves. The forest is speaking to me, demanding action. I find no joy in the task. I understand what has to be done, even if I can find no joy in it. Soon, I wake the others and tell them the plan. Tomorrow we're gonna burn the village. I sit by the fire and listen to the wolves howling to the moon, weeping of their slain brothers and sisters. Then the village ends. The vision ends. When I came to my senses, Lisa was staring and looking at me. Yeah, let's calm down. The forest soldiers, the unknown past, and mysteries are slumped down. It's a lot to take in. I've told you everything I know. If you want more, talk to my girlfriend. We'll be at the logging site tomorrow. It's a good idea. I will, I said. Now finally I knew who and what to ask. There you are, Bartok waved to me. Thought we lost you. Said goodbyes to Lisa and we went back. Cool. Oh, last one. It's a nice village, claimed Anya. As we walked along the quiet street, nothing moved. The heat was stifling. I was bored. This place gives me flashbacks of my teenage years in the Midwest. I complained and kicked an empty beer can down the road. I was bored and ready to stir a fight. He's thirsty. Let's get something to drink. I'm parched, I proposed. The local store was a large mini-mart with all kinds of goods, from beer to vegetables to notebooks to pens. There was a bench near the entrance, and on it were a few local drunks. I prepared myself for a confrontation, but nothing happened. They threw me an appraising glance, murmured something, and let us be. Let's tease them a bit. I straightened up, added an extra sway to my hips, and then I was sure their eyes were on me, flipped them the bird, and went inside. Did you really have to do that? Bartok shook his head. I spent some time inside browsing the Latvian, Lithuanian, and Belarusian goods. Why was there almost nothing Polish here? And who in their right mind drinks coriander soda? I was putting the soda back on the shelf when I heard some commotion from outside. Some slurs, some curses, a clear, mocking, polite, "I'm so sorry, darlings, I don't understand. Do you like my skirt?" Ah, fuck. Bartek murmured something under his breath. I looked outside. There was someone standing next to the drunker's bench. The person was old. Not a helpless granny old, but old, with deep wrinkles and a narrow mouth. They had a unisex grace of a tired, heroin-preserved rockman. Their shoulder-length, disheveled hair completed the look. That's a good look. They had a peculiar style, fashion that you rarely see, even in the United States. It looked great on them. They had a clean shave, and their eyes highlighted with eyeliner. Their nails were painted with bright blue. They wore a heavy army boots, an outrageous red skirt, a tank top, and lots of leather jewelry. On their bag, there were pins, lots of them. All kinds of LGBTQA+ flags. Anarchist and purist symbols. I think some German band stripes. Mom would have told me to say, approach her. She looks cool. I smiled and, ignoring the men, approached the foreigner. Hi, I'm Mia. I just got here. They looked at me with a serene smile. Nice to meet you, Mia, they said with an unmistakable German accent. I'm Kim. Are they bothering you? I asked, trying to keep my voice as polite as Kim's. I barely managed to sound indifferent. Oh, the person shined a blissful, mocking smile at the men. Not at all. Why would they be? Hey! Someone said from behind our backs. Kim smiled, and the men on the bench stiffened. It was Lisa. You should try to stop drinking that moonshine. Makes you pick fights you can't win, she says. I was looking for a fight. I'm sure the drunks would attack her, but they just slumped down. But look at this, Elzunia, said one of them, gesturing towards us. For the last fucking time, the name's Lisa. She was furious. And this is my friend. You're to leave them alone. Got it? The drunkards mumbled and went back to drinking. Thanks, Lisa, Kim said in English. You shouldn't have. Oh, but I wanted to. Hey, Lisa. I waved to her. I think I saw relief in her eyes when she looked at me. Hi, Mia. I was worried. You've got yourself into trouble here. So, will you join us on our anti-logging protest tomorrow? She asked me for a while. Why are they logging? Why are they logging in a national park? Wait, isn't this place like a national park? Why are they logging here? You'd think they'd leave the oldest forest on the continent, the beating heart of it alone, wouldn't you? She looked at me with a grim expression. There's illegal logging here, Anya chipped in. Wood is money, and there's plenty of wood in this forest. Ooh. I couldn't see the forest from here, but I suddenly felt very aware of its presence. I also felt something else deep in my stomach, spreading through my veins. Anger. Like a wave of heat coming from the heart of the dark, ancient forest. A word appeared in my mind. A strange one that was neither Polish nor English. Kalgara. Lisa looked at me in the eyes and spat on the ground. I'd eat those greedy bastards alive. Why is Kim watching me? Felt like I was being watched, but when I looked up, I saw Kim observing with a curious expression. Ooh, trying not to spat at them. I looked at them and realized there were much more than they first seemed. Under their colorful attire lurked something else, something primal. Why are you looking at me like that? I asked. I know you have strange dreams, they whispered. They suspect the force is reaching out to you. They leaned closer to me. It runs in your blood. The words were like a punch to the gut. Trust me, I know. Who was I asked. You can see the invisible. They said, looking at me. You'll find the way. Cool. Put that back. I felt a sudden surge of confidence. I wasn't making that up. There was something else. There was something strange in my family history. There were people who knew what was going on. Before I could ask more, Anya and Bartek approached and Kim shook their head, silencing me. Meet us tomorrow at the logging site. They blew me a kiss and put an arm around Lisa. They walked away. The B&B was quaint. I left Anya and Bartek outside, and they looked like they needed some time alone to say their goodbyes. When I got out of the shower, Anya was back, smiling and a little flustered. What a day, she smiled. So, what did you think? I made a mental inventory of everything that had happened. I can't believe there's logging here. I shook my head. Isn't the forest on a UNESCO list or something? Yeah, I know. I wanted to check out this protest people were talking about. Maybe we could go up there tomorrow? Remember that shop? The tension seemed almost unnatural. A few words more and it would be a regular fight. Maybe they just envied Kim's style. Anya joked, but seemed worried. What happened here that people are still vandalizing my family's grave? What did my grandfather do? She put a hand on my shoulder. Whatever it was, it's not your fault. It wasn't, but it couldn't be my responsibility. Something weird happened when I was talking with Anya, or with Lisa. I think it was her joint, but I saw some things. Like something from the past. Like, from your past? For a second, I searched for the words to explain it to her, but I couldn't really. I think it was my grandpa. It's hard to say. But it was sure weird. I shrugged, ending the topic. You know what? I'm seriously tired. Let's call it a day, shall we? Soon, they were both in our beds, ready to sleep. I was tired, sure, but I was also excited. And excitement isn't the best for sleep. As I lay there thinking about what happened, and thinking about everything that had happened and that might happen next, the wind from the open window lapped over my skin as I watched the silver rectangle painted on the wall by the moonlight. When I closed my eyes, I could still see the weird vision I had that day. My roots were here. I could feel them. Almost touch them. And they were reaching out to me. I felt the answer I was looking for were within my reach. I had to go and see the logging protest, meet the right people, and make them talk. After a long while, all these thoughts became blurry. They slowly started to turn into pictures, sounds, and colors. In a big city, old men sit in leather chairs, lazily enjoying their ever-growing wealth. They watch BF on flickering screens. They watch me. I feel the excitement rising deep within my stomach, then throughout my whole body. I am a weapon. I am a razor-sharp knife. I am a sword. I am a gun waiting to be fired. I am asleep for now, but soon someone will use me and I can't wait. I feel a pull, and I surrender to it. I am pointed towards a clearing. There are piles of fresh corpses. People who died too young. People who died too young, skinned and mutilated. Their loved ones stand around them, grieving, unable to do anything, waiting. And suddenly, there are trees and tree trunks. I look around, my nostrils flare. Who did it? Who murdered the trees? There is a stench in the air like meat rotting in the acid. It somehow works. I see a monster's army. Their mandibles are whirring chainsaws. Their long metal arms are wrapped with black pipes. And that looked like glistening intestines. Their smell is vile. They wait. I'm moving. I go to the dead trees and kneel next to them. Words come to me in a language that I don't remember, but that I know. Words about revenge and death, and sacrifice. I look at, and then my voice tells me to look at the sky. There, between the stars, two shapes circle each other. An old, sad wolf with gray hair and a white weasel. They keep their eyes on one another as they continue their dance. Suspicious, not hostile. We need to fight the enemy. This awful, rotting stench. That I know much. But we cannot do that when we don't trust each other. But how can we do that when we don't trust each other? They stop. They look at me and the clearing. I spill my blood and bless them with words that I do not recognize. But I understand. They come down to me. Their voice is the voice of the Pasusia. We'll come back. We've been away for too long. Okay, everybody, this is where I'm going to end it. I want to thank you for watching, and we will continue next time. Who knows, maybe I actually might do all these stories and what do they call these? Visual novels. If you want to see more, or if you have an idea, I'm okay doing story time. Story time with Hidden Flame. I might call that here. So I will see you guys next time. Till then, have a good night.